Have you ever stood beside a hospital bed, or a silent casket, and wondered, where did they go? One moment, your loved one was breathing, laughing, holding your hand. The next, gone, just gone. And that question lingers like a shadow over your heart. Did they just vanish into nothing? Or is there something more, something we can't see? But the Buddha could? Over 2.500 years ago, the Buddha sat beneath a Bodhi tree and saw through the veil of life and death. He saw where beings come from, where they go, and why. In this video, we'll gently open that ancient wisdom. Not to scare you, but to comfort you. Not to explain death, but to illuminate life. So, sit back, breathe. Let us explore what the Buddha truly revealed about where they go. When someone you love dies, the world doesn't feel the same. Time seems to slow, your surroundings blur. You walk through your day with a weight pressing on your chest, a silent grief. A question left unanswered. Where did they go? We don't ask this just as a curiosity. We ask it because something inside us refuses to accept that a warm heart, a voice we knew, a presence so real, can just vanish. It doesn't make sense. A few hours ago, they were here. Now, they're not. And we're left with memories and silence. Modern life doesn't give us much room to grieve or to wonder. We're often told to move on, to be strong, to get busy. But inside, the question doesn't go away. In quiet moments, it returns. Not just when someone else dies, but when we think of our own death. What will happen to us? What happens after the final breath? For thousands of years, humanity has tried to answer that question. Some say we go to heaven or hell. Others say we return to the earth and become dust. Still others believe we are reborn, again and again. But for the Buddha, this wasn't just a matter of belief. It was a matter of direct insight, something he saw for himself. Beyond ordinary sight. Imagine being able to look into the nature of reality so deeply that you could see not only your own past lives, but the journeys of countless beings, where they come from, where they go, and why. That's what the Buddha claimed to see on the night of his awakening. And that vision, that profound clarity, is what gives his teaching its unique power. But before we get into what he saw, we need to pause and ask, why do we fear death in the first place? Because death is the great unknown. It is the end of everything we identify with, our name, our face, our relationships, our successes, our failures. We spend our lives building a self. And then death comes and sweeps it all away in a single moment. We are terrified not only of pain or suffering, but of ceasing to exist. Yet even that fear carries within it a paradox. If we truly believed we simply vanish, wouldn't that be the end of it? But we don't feel that. We sense that something remains. We feel the presence of those who've passed. We dream of them. We remember them not just as memories but as energies, as if they are still somehow near. That intuitive knowing, that something doesn't end completely, echoes what the Buddha taught. He didn't teach that the soul moves on. As in many religions, he didn't teach that we are annihilated either. What he revealed is more subtle, more profound, and perhaps more comforting. The continuation of mind, of consciousness, shaped by karma. But we'll get to that soon. First, let's understand the heart of what the Buddha was trying to do. He wasn't teaching philosophy to impress anyone. He wasn't trying to win arguments or prove himself. He was trying to relieve suffering, our suffering. And he knew that much of our suffering comes from clinging to what cannot last. Loss is painful because we cling. We cling to loved ones, to life, to youth, to identity. That clinging makes the natural reality of impermanence feel like a threat. But what if we could see death differently? What if, instead of seeing it as a cruel thief, we saw it as a transition, a door, not a wall? When the Buddha saw beings dying and being reborn, He realized that life is not a straight line with a full stop at the end. It's a cycle, a wheel, turning through birth, aging, death, and rebirth. The mind stream continues. The body falls away, but the tendencies, the seeds of past actions, remain. They flow forward, looking for new ground to grow, new conditions for rebirth. If this sounds strange, consider this. In science, we know that energy doesn't disappear, it only changes form. In Buddhism, consciousness is not a fixed self, but a stream, an ongoing flow of moment-to-moment awareness shaped by karma. That stream doesn't end at death. It continues, propelled by habit and intention. This is why, in Buddhist cultures, there is such a deep focus on the mind at the moment of death. Because what we think, feel, and intend at that final moment shapes the next. If the mind is full of fear, hatred, or craving, it moves toward those frequencies. If it is full of peace, compassion, or clarity, it moves upward, toward light. That's also why we chant for the dying, why we hold their hands, why we whisper gentle reminders of the Buddha's name. Because we are trying to steady the mind at the most important transition point of life, the moment it lets go of the body. This view changes everything. If death is not the end, but a transition, then we don't have to despair when someone we love passes. Yes, we still grieve. The loss is real, but the person is not gone forever. They're continuing on. Where? That depends on their karma, the actions of their body, speech, and mind throughout life. Karma, in this sense, is not punishment or reward. It is simply cause and effect. Like planting a seed and seeing what grows. Kindness plants one type of future. Anger plants another. The life we live now is already the fruit of seeds planted in past lives. And the way we respond to life today is planting the future, not just for ourselves, but for others. So when we ask, where did they go? The Buddha would gently ask us back, what kind of seeds did they plant? That's a powerful shift. It moves us from helplessness to reflection, from despair to responsibility. But the Buddha didn't stop there. He gave detailed teachings on exactly where consciousness goes after death, what realms exist, and how beings arrive there, not just as abstract ideas, but as clear maps of reality, seen through his awakened insight. In the next part of this teaching, we'll begin to explore what he revealed under the Bodhi tree, the three great insights that opened his eyes to the truth of death and rebirth. For now, let us take a breath. Let the heart rest. If you are grieving someone who has passed, may these words be a comfort. If you are afraid of your own death, may they be a light. And if you are simply curious about the mystery of what comes next, may they be a doorway. A doorway, not to blind belief, but to deeper understanding, to wisdom, to peace. Now that we've opened our hearts to the question, where do they go? It's time to turn toward the one who saw the answer with clarity beyond imagination. The Buddha didn't speculate about what happens after death. He didn't believe blindly, nor did he ask others to. He saw, and what he saw changed everything. To understand what the Buddha taught about life after death, we must go back to the night he sat beneath the Bodhi tree. Imagine a young man, Siddhartha Gautama, who had left behind a life of privilege, of palace walls and silk robes. Because he couldn't turn away from the reality of suffering. He had seen old age, sickness, death, and he knew that no matter how comfortable a life might appear on the surface, underneath it all, no one could escape the truth of impermanence. And so he sought answers, going through years of deep meditation, extreme austerities, and silent retreats in the forests of ancient India. But nothing gave him the final truth, until one quiet night, he sat down beneath a fig tree with one clear intention. He would not rise until he saw through the root of all suffering. That night, his mind entered into deeper and deeper states of meditation. As his awareness became still and expansive, a clarity emerged that was unlike anything the world had seen before. And what he saw is called the three knowledges, or three clear visions, the core of his awakening. The first was the vision of past lives. Not just one, but thousands, countless. He remembered each existence like someone recalling dreams from the night before, the forms he had taken, the people he had loved, the joys and pains he had experienced. He saw himself being born, growing old, dying, and being reborn again and again, in an endless wheel. This was no myth to him, it was direct perception. He saw how the choices in one life led naturally into the next. And he realized, this is true not just for me, but for all beings. We are all caught in a cycle of birth and death, driven by craving and ignorance. Then came the second vision, the most profound insight into the karma of all beings. His awareness expanded beyond his own experience. He saw the lives of all beings across the cosmos. He saw them rising and falling in different realms of existence, some taking birth in heavenly realms due to good actions, others falling into realms of suffering because of hatred, greed, and delusion. He saw how actions, mental, verbal, physical, carried energy, and how that energy bore fruit in future experiences. It was not random, it was not punishment, it was cause and effect, natural, impartial, unwavering. Karma was the great engine of this cycle, and the mind was the creator. The third vision came as the culmination of the first two, the realization of the end of suffering. With a mind purified of ignorance and fully awake, the Buddha saw how suffering arises, how it continues, and, most importantly, how it can cease. He realized the truth of dependent origination, the interwoven web of cause and condition that creates our experience. And by understanding it, he was able to bring it to an end, within himself. In that moment, he became the Buddha, the awakened one. Now, why does all of this matter to us? Because the questions he answered are the same ones we ask today. What happens after death? Why do we suffer? Why do some people seem to be born into great ease while others face hardship from the first breath? And where do we go when this body falls away? Through the three knowledges, the Buddha gave us a map, not just of this life, but of many. And at the center of that map is the law of karma. The truth that our intentions create our reality. It's not just what we do, it's the why behind what we do. That why, the mental state, the motivation, ripples out far beyond this single lifetime. Let's pause and reflect. If our loved ones who've passed away were on such a journey, what might they have carried with them? What intentions shaped their path? Did they live with kindness, with generosity, with love? Or did they carry burdens of anger, fear, regret? These aren't questions to judge others, but to help us understand. The Buddha didn't offer these visions to create fear. He offered them to awaken compassion. Because if we understand that we are all moving through this vast cycle together, then every action matters. Every word we speak to someone may travel with them long after we're gone. Every grudge we carry may not only weigh down our hearts now, but follow us into our next life. There's a deep comfort in this, too, because it means we are not powerless. We are not tossed by fate. We are not at the mercy of some invisible judge. Our lives are shaped by our minds. And the mind, the Buddha said, can be trained. The Buddha's awakening beneath the Bodhi tree was not the end of his journey. It was the beginning of his teaching. He spent the next 45 years sharing what he had seen. And central to that teaching was this: when you die, your body may return to the earth, but your consciousness continues. Not as a soul, not as an unchanging self, but as a stream of awareness, carrying the imprints of your thoughts, words, and deeds. That stream seeks a new form, a new birth, based on what it holds. So when someone we love dies, they do not disappear. they continue. And if their heart was full of kindness, that stream will carry them to a place where that kindness can blossom even more. The Buddha described this as the cycle of samsara, a vast wheel of birth and death with many realms. Some are joyful, some are painful, but all are impermanent. We will explore these realms in the next part of this teaching. But for now, understand this. The Buddha's vision under the Bodhi tree was not a fantasy. It was a direct knowing, so clear that it broke the chains of suffering for him forever. And he didn't keep it to himself. He gave it to the world, not as dogma, but as a mirror, to see ourselves more clearly. If you've ever felt that this life is too short for all your questions, all your longings, all your unfinished business, maybe you're right. Maybe that feeling is not a mistake. Maybe it's a memory of something deeper. The Buddha's awakening invites us to listen to that inner knowing, to not settle for shallow answers, to look deeply, and in that looking, to live differently, to live with awareness, to live with care, to live with the understanding that we are not passing through life, we are planting it. And when death comes, as it surely will, we will not fall into darkness. We will move forward, carried by the quality of our hearts. May this reminder bring comfort, may it bring clarity, and may it plant the seed of deeper faith, not blind belief, but faith born of reflection. In the next part, we'll walk the path of that stream of consciousness. We'll follow it from the moment of death into the in-between state. What happens right after the breath stops? Before a new life begins. It's called the Bardo, and what the Buddha and later masters revealed about it may change how you see everything. Take a breath. You're not alone on this journey. Let's continue. Together. Let's return to that moment, the moment someone dies. The heart has stopped. The breath has gone still. Their body lies peacefully or painfully, but they are no longer responding to the outside world. They are gone. But according to the Buddha's teaching, this is not the end. It is, in a very real way, the beginning of a new journey. The Buddha described death not as a complete cessation, but as a transition, a passage from one state of being to another. And what makes that transition possible is the mind, not the physical brain, but the deeper, non-material stream of consciousness that carries the imprints of all our thoughts, emotions, and actions, what we might call karmic momentum. This mind is not a fixed identity. It is not you, in the way you think of yourself, your face, your name, your memories. Those are bound to the body and begin to fade when the body fades. But the deeper current, the force shaped by your intentions and habits, continues. It's this current that moves forward, like a flame passed from one candle to another, not exactly the same flame, but not entirely different either. So what happens in that gap between death and the next life? That's where things get very subtle and very important. In many Buddhist traditions, particularly Tibetan Buddhism, this in-between state is known as the Bardo, a term that literally means intermediate state. It is the space between death and rebirth. And what happens in this space depends on the state of your mind when you died, as well as the accumulated karma of your life. When a person dies, their consciousness begins to dissolve from the physical world. First, the senses shut down, the sight fades. Hearing becomes distant, touch disappears. Then the inner elements of the body begin to dissolve, the earth element, solidity, the water element, fluids, the fire element, warmth, and the air element, breath. As these dissolve, the person may experience various internal visions, light, darkness, wind, or even a sense of floating. To a meditator or a spiritually aware person, these signs are recognizable. They may use them as doorways to liberation. But for most people, this process happens unconsciously. And what matters most is not what you see, but the state of your mind as this unraveling occurs. That's why in Buddhist cultures, People chant near the dying. They speak gently. They encourage peace. They say the Buddha's name. Because in those final moments, the mind is like soft clay, easily imprinted. If the dying person is afraid, grasping, or angry, their consciousness will be drawn toward lower states. If they are calm, trusting, or devoted, they will rise. This is not superstition. It's about energy. Think about the last dream you had, how it was shaped by your emotions from the day. Now imagine that dream carrying you into your next life. That's how the Bardo works. In the early stages of the Bardo, many beings don't even realize they've died. The attachment to their body is still strong. They may linger near their loved ones. Confused or worried, they may try to speak, to touch, to interact, but no one responds. For the dead, this can be painful if they were deeply attached. But it can also be freeing, if they had trained their mind to let go. Eventually, the disconnection grows. The being begins to see visions, some beautiful, some terrifying. These are reflections of their own mind. Peaceful beings may see luminous forms, teachers, lights. Disturbed beings may see frightening shapes, hear chaotic sounds, feel chased or burned or trapped. But these are not punishments. They are projections of karma, the mind manifesting itself in its pure or impure form. During this stage, the being is not yet fixed in any particular rebirth. They are still fluid, like a cloud looking for a place to rain. And just like rain falls where conditions allow, the consciousness will move toward a realm that matches its vibration, its karmic frequency. The Buddha described 6 such realms: heavenly, human, demi-god, animal, hungry ghost, and hell. We'll explore them in more detail soon. But here's the key: the consciousness does not choose in the way we normally think. It is drawn by karma. Just like a seed falls into the soil where it can grow, the mind finds a rebirth where its energy can express itself. This is why spiritual practice matters. If we have spent our lives cultivating loving kindness, compassion, mindfulness, generosity, those qualities form the core of our being. And when the body falls away, that lightness carries us upward. If we have lived in hatred, greed, deception, those form chains that pull the mind downward, into confusion and suffering. But here's the good news. Even in the Bardo, there are moments of choice. If a being remembers the Dharma, if they hear the name of the Buddha, if they experience a flash of compassion, that can shift the momentum. It's like a parachute being opened just before hitting the ground. That's why it's never too late to help someone who has died. You can pray for them, chant for them, dedicate merit. In Buddhist understanding, your love and practice can reach them across the veil, especially in those early days after death when their mind is still fluid and receptive. This is also why it's essential to prepare for our own death now, not in fear, but in awareness. If we wait until the last breath to face the unknown, it may be too late to shift the course. But if we live with mindfulness today, if we learn to let go, to love, to forgive, then death becomes not a terrifying end but a peaceful passage. Imagine dying with a smile, not because you're denying fear, but because you've trained your mind to meet change with grace. Imagine being able to think of the Buddha, of your teacher, of a chant you love, even as your breath fades. That's not fantasy. That's what the Buddha taught. That's what's possible. So what happens after death? The mind continues. The journey continues. The form you wore is shed, but the essence moves forward. And just like a traveler who sets out with luggage packed from the previous stop, you carry with you everything you've packed in your mind. What have you packed? That's the real question. Are you carrying peace, or resentment, trust, or doubt, love, or fear? Because that's what determines where you'll go, not some cosmic judgment, but your own mind's momentum. The journey after death is deeply personal, yet universally patterned. The Buddha mapped it not to control it, but to help us understand, to live better, to prepare, to care for each other at the end, and perhaps, to remove the fear that paralyzes so many of us. You don't need to be afraid of death. You need to understand it. You need to practice for it. You need to live so that, when the time comes, your mind is not clinging to anything, so that it lifts, light and free, like a feather in the wind. And when someone you love dies, you don't have to be consumed by grief. You can chant, you can sit, you can dedicate a candle, a prayer, a moment of silence, not because it fixes anything, but because it touches their journey, just when it matters most. In the next part of this teaching, we'll follow that journey into the realms themselves. What are these 6 realms the Buddha described? Are they real places, or psychological states? Are they metaphors, or destinations? And what can they teach us about how to live right now? We'll answer those questions next. For now, take a breath. You are already on the journey. And you are not alone. If the mind continues after death, as the Buddha taught, then where does it go? It doesn't float aimlessly. It doesn't vanish into nothingness. It moves with purpose, though not always consciously, guided by karma, drawn like a magnet to the realm that matches its inner frequency. This is where the teachings on the 6 realms of rebirth come in, not as fantasy, but as a profound map of existence. The Buddha saw these realms not with imagination, but with awakened vision, and whether we see them as literal places or symbolic states, they hold deep insight into the human condition. The 6 realms are not heaven and hell in the Western sense. They are 6 modes of existence, 6 dimensions of experience that beings are born into based on the ripening of karma. These realms are all part of samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, and beings move through them, again and again, lifetime after lifetime, until they awaken and step off the wheel. Let's begin with the realm most familiar to us, the human realm. The human realm is unique because it offers a rare balance. Here, we experience both pleasure and pain, success and failure, love and loss. This balance is not a curse, it's a gift, because it allows us to reflect, to question, to practice. The Buddha taught that a human birth is incredibly precious. To be born as a human with the faculties to hear the Dharma, to contemplate, to meditate, this is not random. It's the result of vast positive karma. It may have taken hundreds, even thousands of lifetimes to arrive here, which is why wasting a human life in distraction, hatred, or greed is considered a great tragedy in the Dharma. If you're hearing these teachings now, you are already blessed. Don't forget that. But not all beings are reborn as humans. Some rise into the heavenly realms. The heavenly realm is a state of existence filled with bliss, beauty, and longevity. Beings born here have immense pleasure and power. They live in radiance, free from most forms of suffering. But there's a hidden danger in this realm: complacency. Because life is so pleasurable, there's little motivation to practice. The beings here may forget impermanence. They may forget the Dharma. And when their positive karma runs out, they fall, often into lower realms. The Buddha warned that while the heavenly realm is enjoyable, it's not liberation. It's still within samsara. It's still impermanent. Below the human realm is the realm of the asuras, often translated as titans or demigods. These beings are powerful, but constantly driven by envy, competition, and conflict. They are consumed by the desire to conquer, to outshine, to dominate. Imagine someone who has wealth, beauty, strength, but is never satisfied. Always comparing, always striving, always angry. That's the energy of the Asura realm. It's a painful existence disguised as power. In modern terms, we might see this in corporate empires, political rivalries, or social media feuds, where the ego seeks endless validation but finds no peace. Then we come to the animal realm. This is the realm of instinct, fear, and survival. Beings here live in constant reaction, hunting, hiding, feeding, fleeing. There's little room for reflection. Their lives are bound by ignorance. Not from fault, but from lack of clarity. The Buddha didn't teach this with judgment, but with compassion. He reminded us that we, too, have lived in this realm many times. And if our lives are ruled by habit, greed, or blindness, we may return there again. But kindness toward animals, care for their suffering, can be a bridge of compassion that lifts both them and us upward. Next is the realm of hungry ghosts, the Preta realm. This is a state of insatiable craving. Beings in this realm are consumed by desire, but can never satisfy it. They may have huge stomachs but tiny mouths. They may see water turn to fire as they reach for it. These images are symbolic of addiction, obsession, emotional hunger. In a way, we all experience this realm at times, when we chase after things that never fill us. Fame, wealth, relationships, even spiritual highs. The Preta realm is a mirror. It shows us what happens when craving runs wild and is never questioned. Finally, we come to the hell realms. These are states of intense suffering, hot or cold, physical or mental, where beings experience the direct result of hatred, cruelty, or deep delusion. These are not eternal places of punishment. In Buddhism, nothing in samsara is forever. Even hell has an exit when karma is exhausted. But the pain here is immense, and the journey long. And yet, the Buddha spoke of these realms not to frighten, but to teach responsibility, to show us the consequences of our actions, not by threat, but by cause and effect. All 6 realms are interdependent. They arise from the mind. They exist within samsara, and they are not separate from our experience even now. Think about it. Haven't you tasted all of these in your own life? A moment of pure joy and peace. That's the heavenly realm. A sudden burst of rage or obsession with success. That's the Asura realm. A day spent in reaction, survival, or numb routine. That's the animal realm. A longing that never ends. A hunger that haunts you. That's the hungry ghost realm. A moment of intense pain, despair, or hatred. That's the hell realm. And in between, the human realm, where we experience a little of all, and yet have the chance to wake up. This is why the 6 realms are not just cosmic locations. They are reflections of the mind. They are energies, tendencies, inner landscapes, and they're constantly shifting. One moment, we're generous, our mind opens. We rise. The next, we lash out, our mind contracts. We fall. This is the wheel, turning moment by moment, life by life. The Buddha taught the 6 realms not to shame us, but to awaken us, to show us that we are not stuck, that every realm is impermanent, that by changing our mind, we change our realm, and most importantly, to help us appreciate the rare gift of human birth. Right now, you are not a ghost. You are not a titan. You are not in hell. You are here, alive, breathing, with the capacity to hear, reflect, and choose. This is rare. This is precious. Don't take it for granted. If someone you loved has passed, they are now moving through this system. Their karma is unfolding, and you can support them, not by clinging, but by practicing, by doing good in their name, by reciting prayers, by holding them in compassion. That energy reaches them, across realms. And for yourself, know that your future is not written in stone. It is shaped by your present. The way you speak, act, think. This is your karma. And it's your ticket to the next realm. But there's something more, something beyond all 6 realms. Something the Buddha pointed to again and again: liberation. The wheel turns, yes, but it's possible to step off. Not by force, not by denial, but by wisdom, by seeing through the illusion of self, by letting go of clinging, by awakening the mind. That's the deeper path. That's where all of this is leading. But before we go there, we must ask, how does karma actually work? What creates the pull toward one realm or another? Is it fate, or is it choice? In the next part of this teaching, we'll dive into the law of karma, how consciousness and intention shape where we go after death, and how you, right now, can begin shaping a better next life. Until then, remember, the realms are within you, and you have the power to rise. Now that we've explored the 6 realms, the possible destinations after death, the question becomes more personal, more urgent. What determines which realm we go to? What decides whether we rise into light or fall into suffering? Is it a divine being? A random roll of the cosmic dice? Or is there something within us, something we've carried all along, that gently or forcefully points the way? The Buddha's answer was clear and revolutionary. It's karma, but not the pop culture version of karma. The kind where people say, karma will get you, as if it's some cosmic punishment system. No, the Buddha revealed something deeper. That karma is the natural law of cause and effect. And it operates not just in this life, but beyond it. Karma, in Sanskrit, simply means action, but in the Buddha's teaching, it means action of body, speech, and mind, driven by intention. Intention is everything. It's the seed, the force behind the act, the mental energy that leaves a trace on the stream of consciousness. When you speak a kind word with a loving heart, that intention plants a seed. When you act out of jealousy, that too leaves an imprint. These seeds don't disappear. They stay in the subconscious, what Buddhist psychology calls the storehouse consciousness. And they ripen, sometimes quickly, sometimes years or lifetimes later. But they always ripen, given the right conditions. This is how the future is shaped. Not by fate, but by habit, by mental patterns, by the energies we cultivate. Moment to moment, the Buddha said, whatever we think and ponder upon becomes the inclination of the mind. This means that every thought is a direction. Every emotion we indulge becomes a pathway. And over time, the mind takes shape. That shape is karma. At the moment of death, this shaped mind, the sum of your intentions, tendencies, and deepest impressions, takes center stage. As the body fades, as the brain shuts down, the subtle mind becomes active. It scans through all the karmic seeds you planted, seeking the one that is ripest, strongest, most dominant, and that seed determines where you go. Think of it like this. Imagine you've spent a lifetime watering seeds of anger. You get irritated easily. You hold grudges. You lash out. You may do some good things too, but the anger is stronger. In the moment of death, unless you've consciously trained otherwise, that anger will rise, and it will guide your rebirth, perhaps into a realm of suffering, or even into a painful human life. Now imagine instead you've practiced kindness. You've made mistakes, sure, but again and again, you return to compassion. You help others. You forgive. You speak gently. That habit becomes dominant, and in the moment of death, it blooms. It leads the way. Your mind lifts. This is not superstition. It's psychology across lifetimes. The key here is to understand that karma isn't a rigid scorecard. It's not about good and bad in a moralistic sense. It's about the energy of the mind. Anger is heavy. Greed is sticky. Delusion is dark. Compassion is light. Wisdom is spacious. These energies shape your experience, not because someone is judging you, but because like attracts like. A mind of hatred can't enter a realm of peace. A mind of love can't fall into darkness. They don't match. So when someone dies, and we ask, where did they go? The real answer is, where did their mind take them? What thoughts were strongest? What patterns were most ingrained? That's why spiritual practice matters so much. Because it reshapes the mind. It builds new karma. Every time you sit in meditation, even for a few minutes, you're training your mind to be still, to be aware. Every time you let go of resentment or offer a prayer, you're planting a new seed. These moments accumulate. They become your internal landscape. And that landscape is what you carry into the next life. The Buddha compared karma to a river. The current is strong, shaped by past rains, but if you begin redirecting the flow, even a little, you change where the river ends up. It takes effort, yes, but it's possible. That's the beauty of this teaching. You're not stuck. You're not doomed by your past. You are shaping your future right now. This also explains why people can be born into such different circumstances. One person is born into wealth, safety, and opportunity. Another is born into poverty, illness, or war. From the outside, it seems unfair, but the Buddha saw deeper. He saw that these conditions are not random. They are the unfolding of past karma. Not as punishment, not as reward, but as natural cause and effect. Does that mean we should accept injustice? No, it means we should respond with even more compassion. Because behind every person's life is a history we can't see. And every act of kindness we offer can shift their future. Even if just a little. There's a story the Buddha told about a monk who had committed terrible acts in a past life. Because of this, he was destined for a lower rebirth. But in this life, he practiced deeply, purified his mind, and at death, his final thought was of the Buddha. That single thought, sincere, steady, overpowered the old karma. And he was reborn in a higher realm. This is the power of the mind. It's never too late to shift. But it takes practice. And this is why what we think, say, and do, right now, matters far beyond this moment. Every harsh word adds weight. Every act of generosity adds lightness. Every selfish act creates a knot. Every act of service unravels it. And this is why Buddhists often say that death is not the end, it's a mirror. It reflects back to us who we truly are. Beyond appearances, it's the final test of the mind. And how we've lived determines how we pass through that test. So if you want to know where someone went after they died, ask yourself, what kind of person were they? What did they love? What did they fear? Did they act with kindness? Did they forgive? Did they seek truth? Or did they cling, harm, deceive? Of course, we can't always know, which is why we don't judge. But we can help. We can offer prayers. We can dedicate good deeds. Because the laws of karma include the law of interdependence. Nothing is isolated. Your merit can touch others, even across the veil. And if you want to prepare for your own death, not with fear, but with courage, start now. Watch your thoughts, train your speech, soften your actions, meditate, chant, serve others, let go. Every time you do, you're redirecting the current of your karma. And that current will carry you safely when the body falls away. The Buddha said, with our thoughts, we make the world. That includes the next world. That includes the world we wake into after this one ends. So where do we go when we die? We go where our mind is ready to go. We go where our karma guides us. We go where our intentions have already been traveling. But here's the most important truth. We don't have to stay on that wheel forever. In the next part, we'll begin to explore the Buddha's deepest promise, not just where we go, but how to stop going, how to step off the wheel of samsara, how to find liberation. Until then, keep practicing. You're not just preparing for death. You're creating your next life, moment by moment. Up to now, we've been exploring the journey of what happens after death. We've looked into the continuation of consciousness, the passage through the Bardo, the 6 realms of rebirth, and the force of karma that shapes our destination. But at some point, a deeper question begins to emerge. Not just, where do we go? But, do we have to keep going at all? Is there a way out? For the Buddha, this was the most important question. In fact, It was the question that drove him to renounce his royal life, leave his family, wander the forests, and sit beneath the Bodhi tree in unshakable determination. He wasn't content with just understanding the process of death and rebirth. He wanted to find an end to it. He wanted to find freedom. And he did. What the Buddha discovered is often called nirvana. But the word nirvana has been so used and misused that it can feel distant, abstract, even mystical. So let's bring it closer. Nirvana means extinguishing, the blowing out of the fires of craving, hatred, and ignorance. It is not a place. It is not a heaven. It is not something you find after death. It is the ending of suffering through awakening. It is the realization of a mind so clear, so free, that the causes of rebirth simply no longer arise. To understand how that's possible, we have to understand why we're reborn in the first place. According to the Buddha, the cycle of samsara is fueled by craving, the constant grasping at existence, the fear of non-existence, the hunger for becoming something. Craving is what ties the mind to form, sensation, perception, thought, and consciousness. As long as craving exists, we are pulled back, lifetime after lifetime, into this dance of becoming. But craving doesn't come alone. It's rooted in ignorance, the fundamental misunderstanding of who and what we are. We believe we are a permanent self, an I, that owns this body and mind. We cling to this I, defend it, feed it, grieve it. But the Buddha saw that this I is an illusion, a process, not a thing, a collection of conditions, not an essence. When you see through that illusion, not intellectually, but experientially, the craving loses its fuel. And when craving ends, the chain breaks. That's liberation. That's nirvana. So how do we get there? How do we follow the Buddha's path out of the cycle? He left us a clear map. It's called the Noble Eightfold Path. This path is not a set of beliefs. It's a way of living, a way of seeing, a way of being. It's the process by which we purify the mind, understand reality, and develop the strength to let go of what binds us. And it begins with right view. Right view doesn't mean having the right opinions. It means seeing things as they are, understanding the Four Noble Truths, that life includes suffering, that suffering has a cause, craving, that it can be ended, and that there's a path to that end. When we really see this, not just hear it, but know it, everything changes. From right view comes right intention, living with the intent of renunciation, goodwill, and harmlessness. These are the antidotes to craving, anger, and cruelty. They soften the heart and redirect the mind. Then comes right speech, right action, and right livelihood, how we relate to the world. These are the ethical trainings: speaking truthfully, acting kindly, and earning a living that causes no harm. This is where karma is purified, where we plant seeds that lift instead of lower. The next steps are right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. These are the mental trainings, how we transform the mind from chaos to clarity. Right effort means guarding the mind from unwholesome states and cultivating wholesome ones. Right mindfulness means seeing each moment clearly, body, feelings, thoughts, mental patterns. And right concentration means developing deep states of stillness, where insight can arise. Together, these 8 folds are not separate steps. They're one path, woven together, supporting each other, and when walked with sincerity, they lead the practitioner to a mind free of greed, hatred, and delusion. But the path isn't easy. The Buddha never said it would be. He said it's like swimming upstream in a river where the current is strong. But he also said, it's possible. He didn't just say it, he lived it. And so have countless others since then. You don't have to become a monk or nun. You don't have to abandon your life. But you do have to commit to wake up from automatic living, to question your thoughts, to examine your desires, to soften your fears, to train your mind. The more you do, the more freedom you find. And that freedom begins now, not at the moment of death. Every moment you let go of clinging is a moment of liberation. Every moment you choose love over anger, presence over distraction, is a moment off the wheel. In this way, the practice becomes not just a way to prepare for death, but a way to die before you die. That means letting go of the false self, letting go of the identity we defend so fiercely, letting go of control. When you die before you die, physical death becomes not a terror, but a release. The Buddha once said, "Just as a flame is blown out and goes no more, so is the mind of the awakened one." But this doesn't mean nothing remains. It means what remains is not bound by becoming. It means the awakened one is no longer pulled by karma, no longer drawn into rebirth. The journey is complete. So where do they go? Those who are awakened? The answer is, they don't go. They are free. They rest in the unconditioned, beyond space and time, beyond words. We can't fully grasp that with the conceptual mind, but we can trust it. We can sense it. We can orient our lives toward that freedom. And in the meantime, we keep walking. We keep practicing. We stumble. We fall. We get back up, because every step matters. You may not be free yet, but with every act of clarity, compassion, and wisdom, you move closer. Even hearing this teaching plants seeds. Even considering it shifts the path. So don't underestimate what you're doing now. You're not just learning about death. You're touching liberation. In the final part of this journey, we'll explore how we can live now, with the end in mind, not in fear, but with courage, clarity, and compassion. We'll ask, how can we support others as they die? How can we die well ourselves? And how can we live so that, when the time comes, we leave nothing undone? Until then, remember, the path is already beneath your feet, and every breath can be a step toward freedom. Now that we've traveled together through these teachings, from what happens after death, to where the mind goes, to the laws of karma and the path to liberation, we come to the final and perhaps most important question. How do we actually face death? Not as a concept, but as an eventual certainty. Not as something that happens to others, but to ourselves. How do we meet that moment with clarity instead of fear? With grace instead of grasping? With peace instead of panic? The answer lies in how we live. Because the way we live is the way we die. Death doesn't change our character. It doesn't suddenly make us wise, or calm, or free. It simply reveals who we already are, when all the roles, masks, and comforts fall away. Which means the preparation for death begins not in the hospital, but in this moment. In the way we think, in the way we speak, in the way we respond to small endings, every day. And if we want to die well, we must practice letting go now. Letting go of control, letting go of fixed identity, letting go of anger, of blame, of the illusion that anything here lasts forever. This is not pessimism, this is clarity, and clarity brings freedom. There's a quiet power in someone who has come to terms with death. You can feel it. They don't cling. They don't panic. They don't need everything to go their way. They live lightly. And when the time comes, they die lightly. That kind of presence is not accidental. It's cultivated through mindfulness, through compassion, through the courage to face what most people avoid. The Buddha taught that death is the greatest teacher. Why? Because it cuts through illusion. It reveals what really matters. When you know your time is limited, you stop wasting it. You stop arguing about small things. You stop postponing love. You start listening. You start forgiving. You start living with intention. This is why so many great practitioners meditate on death, not to be morbid, but to wake up. In fact, the Buddha himself encouraged this. He said, of all the contemplations, the contemplation of death is the most powerful. Why? Because it turns every breath into a gift. It makes every word count. And it reminds us, we don't have time to hate. We don't have time to waste. We don't have time to stay asleep. But what about when death is near, not in theory, but in the room? What if it's your mother, your friend, your partner who is dying? How can you help? This is where the practice of compassionate presence becomes real. The most important thing you can offer someone who is dying is not advice, not even explanation. It's your calm, loving presence. Be there. Listen. Don't try to fix. Don't try to make it pretty. Just hold space. If they're afraid, don't tell them not to be. Hold their hand. Breathe with them. If they're angry, don't argue. Let them speak. If they're quiet, don't fill the silence. Sit with them. The dying process is sacred. It is intimate. And for the person going through it, it is everything. In Buddhist traditions, it is also seen as the most critical time in a person's spiritual journey. The moment of death is like the moment a seed falls to earth. It will determine the next growth. So everything that supports peace, trust, and clarity in that moment helps guide the consciousness toward a better rebirth, or toward awakening. That's why Buddhists chant at the bedside. That's why they whisper the name of the Buddha, or read Dharma passages. The goal is not conversion. It's comfort. It's creating a space where the mind can let go of fear and rest in something greater than itself. If your loved one is open to it, you can encourage them gently. Think of something beautiful. Think of your best qualities. Think of love. Think of light. Let go. You can remind them, you're safe. You're loved. It's okay to go. If they have faith, use that faith. If they don't, use silence. Use kindness. And after they're gone, keep practicing. Don't let your grief turn to despair. Let it become prayer. Dedicate your good deeds in their name. Light a candle. Offer meditation. Send love into the unknown. These things matter, not because we can control where they go, but because we can connect soul to soul, across space and time. But the deepest part of this teaching is not just how to help others die. It's how to live so that when we die, we have nothing left to regret. Ask yourself now, if I died tonight, what would be unfinished? What would I wish I had said? Whom would I want to forgive? What would I wish I had done? Don't wait. Say it now. Forgive them now. Begin it now. This is how Buddhists train, not just for spiritual attainment, but for a clean death. A death where the mind is light, where the breath slows gently, where the heart has already made peace. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have all the answers. But you do need to be honest, with yourself, with others, with life. Because the truth is, death is coming, for all of us. It may come slowly. It may come suddenly. But it will come. And when it does, all that will matter is the quality of your mind. Were you present? Were you loving? Were you awake? That's what determines where you go. And more than that, it determines who you are, right now. You don't have to wait until death to be free. You can be free now. Free from fear. Free from clinging. Free from the prison of ego. That's the Buddha's gift. Not just a map of the afterlife, but a guide to this life. Not just where we go, but how to go through it, awake. So in the end, when someone asks, where do they go after death? You can answer with calm. They go where their mind is ready to go. They go where their heart has trained to go. And if they practiced, even a little, with love and wisdom, they go in peace. But maybe the more important question is this: where are you going now? Not after death, but in this very breath. Is your mind heading toward clarity or confusion? Toward compassion or anger? Toward awakening or distraction? This moment matters. Because this moment becomes the next. And the next becomes your life. And your life becomes your death. And your death becomes your next life. So live well. Die with grace. And let this understanding be not the end of something, but the beginning of a deeper, freer, more beautiful way of being. May your path be clear. May your heart be light. May you meet death as an old friend, ready, open, unafraid. And may we all remember, the journey doesn't end here. It continues. And the direction it takes is in your hands. If this talk has touched something deep in you, let it sit in your heart. Take a moment to breathe, not with fear, but with reverence for life. If you feel moved, chant a single line. Sit in silence. Think of someone you love, or someone you've lost. Dedicate your next act of kindness to them. And remember, every moment you wake up is a moment beyond death.